Stuart, what a treat and what a privilege to have you join us. It's been some time,
Ah,
hasn't it? It's been some
yes,
time.
it has. But
Um,
it
but it's
it's kind
flown.
of amazing to think it's been what, 20 years since I left Brit school. Like I think it's the year 2000 was the end of my sort of tenure. I think I might have stayed on until 2001, but yeah, it's about 20 years since we were at Brit school together. But then probably about what, maybe 15, 16 years since we've seen each other. It's quite a long time, isn't
It's
it?
a long time. Look at us. I mean, just as a little intro, really. So you've been a songwriter for some time now. In fact, like when you were 18, didn't you win the Stolmos Prize? Is that right, for musical theatre?
Yeah, it was actually
Musical theatre composer?
earlier than that. I think I wrote the musical when I was 14, and then I think I was 16 when I won it. It was during Brit, actually, because some of the Brit school clan that I was with in my year came to support and come to the awards. But it was 16, most promising under 18 musical writer of 1999.
16. That is quite incredible, isn't it? And so you were at the Brit School. Were you there then for 4 years, or were you there at like a 2-year musical? Because I thought you were a 2-year musical theatre.
Yes, I did the 2-year musical theatre course from, I guess, well, yes, I was 16, so it would have been 1999 until 2001. But I stayed an extra year, I think, to do the vocational study in music management with Arthur Bolton, the legend that is Arthur Bolton.
You see, that's what I remember, and that's what I remember about Zach. And I said to Zach, like, if I thought about anything about you, it's that you had that absolute focus of where you were going or where you were heading, or it was so innate inside you. So, I mean, did you have a master plan? Because Max and Zach said he was like, no, I was definitely on a mission.
Entertain in whatever way that I can. I remember as a child, I loved the idea of when I went to the theatre, I would escape everything for 2 hours or something, whether it was watching Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat or it was in a local village hall listening to some karaoke or something. Even, it was just, I loved the idea that I could escape through anything theatrical or musical. And so I sort of made it my life's mission to work in achieving that. If I can do it as an actor and make either my colleagues around me and the audience kind of get lost into a moment or a character that I'm playing, fantastic. Then when I've been writing, it's like, well, now I can write the material that the actor can also get lost in. And then when I'm producing now, it's like, well, actually, I can help everybody get lost into a story. It's a weird sort of way that I think, but
No.
I say the ups and downs, the career choices I've made, and the projects I've done or haven't done, they've always come back to that fundamental thing of let's create a world where people can escape and be challenged and feel something.
So that's good. Now, Mount View was the right fit for you, wasn't it? Like, I just think, tell me about it, because obviously it's mainly acting, but it's a lot of musical theatre, isn't it? Or it was at that time.
Yeah, like I feel very sort of, it feels weird to say blessed, but I do. It's a good word to use. I feel very blessed that I managed to get in there at a time when it was very positive in musical theatre world. We were known as, the ugly school with the best voices kind of thing, like you went to GSA, Guildford at that point, School of Acting for serious drama-led musical theatre performers and actors. Arts Educational was more focused on dance, and then Mount View was more vocal. So like back then it was very specific, and then when we graduated, the industry knew if you had a particular school on your CV, yeah, that's where we can get them in for X, Y, and Z. But these days, it's evolved quite a lot, and I think drama schools are generally getting a sort of a uniquely all triple threat kind of graduating thing going on, which I think is great, because then it means more people have a chance of ticking more boxes in the industry and not being sort of pigeonholed into a certain area because of the school they went to. However, what I loved is that my training was it was fantastic. Like they're literally the best years of my life at Mount View. One of my the head of year at the time, Paul Saby, it was, I think, after our year he started to have a sabbatical and then ended up moving to Australia and starting a drama school over there, very similar to the way that Mount View was running at the time. And I met with him a couple of months ago in New York, and we had like a little drink together, and it was great. I finally got to tell him that, yeah, he was hard on me and he pushed me into directions that I wasn't aware that I needed to go in. And I challenged him every now and then with my own egotistical arrogance that I had. And, you know, that's part of the job. And it was nice to finally have perspective on all of that and meet with him and essentially just say, thank you. You know, thank you for giving me the best training I could have got, the best 3 years of my life, and teaching me things, and still continue to teach me even though I haven't seen him for 12 years. You know, it was a very special time at Mount View with some wonderful friends, and yeah, I'm very fortunate to have been able to have a place there. And at the time, government grants were there to help students pay for their tuition fees. So I was lucky enough to get one of these grants and didn't have to pay more than standard university fees at that time, which was probably like a couple of grand a year, if that. So like, it was a very good time, and I feel sorry for a lot of students now that have to go through a lot worse. But yeah.
I think that's, and I think Zach said that too, and I guess everyone will look back and reflect maybe and say that they had the best time, but I think, like you say, it's those little windows of time where just the most incredible practitioners seem to be under the same roof, didn't they, kind of teaching us all, and they kind of, you know, I think he was saying that he was talking about Donald at Millennium, sort of, you know, having been in the same space as Ginger Rogers, you know, and so you kind of absorb all of that history, and it's like an osmosis, isn't it, that everybody sort of takes on.
Yeah, like it's very, I think whenever you look back on your trainings anywhere, there are certain teachers that you really clicked with and certain teachers that you maybe didn't click with, or because you felt they didn't like you, you didn't progress as far, when there was never a problem. You just made it a problem in your own mind for whatever reason. I feel like I did that. But like, I had fantastic relationship with my one-to-one singing teacher. Within the first few vocal lessons he gave me, something clicked in my voice that has now allowed me to build on that, and to the point where I feel like my voice is my strongest attribute as a performer. People respond quite positively to what I do as a vocalist, and I put that down to the ability to click with that guy, Ian Barr. He did everything for me, turned my life around as far as a vocalist is concerned. So I'll always remember, like Zach said, it's remembering those one or two teachers that just unlocked something special inside yourself that you arguably just feel confident with having when you walk into a room. And yeah.
So let's just take a trip back to the beginning. Let's jump back, and then we'll jump back again. So like, how did it all begin? What was the defining moment for Stuart Matthew Price when you woke up and went, oh my goodness, I love theatre?
I'm going to devote my life to unemployment. I talk about this story a lot. So like my family are all based from the West Midlands, near Birmingham, and my parents grew up in a place called West Bromwich. If you're a football fan, you'll know West Bromwich Albion. But my parents lived around there, and I was born in a place nearby called Kidderminster. And when I was think 18 months old, my parents relocated down here to Portsmouth for work, but the rest of my family all stayed in the Midlands. And every now and then we would get in the car and obviously drive up so that my grandparents at the time could see their grandchildren. And I think I was 6 years old, and we were driving up, and this music was playing on the old cassette player in the car. Yeah.
The cassette player.
Cassette player. Yeah, just helping all our younger audience understand what it means to be old. And I was like, "Mum, what is this?" Or "Mum, what is this?" I don't know how my voice was when I was 6, and she said, "It's called the Phantom of the Opera." And I was like, "What's that?" She's like, "It's a musical." "What's a musical?" And then that was it. That was the moment. I was just absolutely absorbed in all this music of musicals. It was a whole different thing to hear for me. And I remember I would sit and listen to the CD of Miss Saigon over and over again. I mean, there were some swear words in it, so I used to love singing the swear words, and then I'd get told off and be like, "It's in the show, I'm allowed to, I'm just singing." And then or I'd be up here with Les Miserables or Sunset Boulevard, and I'll be doing Lego. I mean, I think it was clear I was going to be ending up in the theatre world. I was doing Lego to Sunset Boulevard, but I loved it. It was there was something about it. It was different from just listening to, at the time, 90s boy bands and girl bands and things like that. There was something interesting about sustained notes, and I think it was the stories. I could start to understand the stories. I think I started to write my first ever musical, which is basically pushing a key on a Casio keyboard and letting the keyboard do all the work for you. Again, that's a very old way of doing things. And I think I started to write my first one when I was 11.
Wow.
So I'm very quickly obsessed with musicals, and that was it. I've never looked back. It's been a huge part of my life.
But I need to quickly jump back to Sunset Boulevard and you doing your Lego. So I'd love to know what musically is your favourite musical, particularly as you said you listen to that one a lot. I know, but for you it's going to be impossible because that's what you do. Not just a dancer, darling, but you're a musician.
Well, I think
composer.
It's odd for me. I think I've been asked a lot about what my favorite musical is, and obviously as I've grown up, there's a ridiculously large amount of musicals that have come out that I've discovered as an adult, of shows, like early Stephen Sondheim shows, Sunday in the Park with George, even Sweeney Todd, Company, all these shows that I didn't know about when I first started. It was mainly Andrew Lloyd Webber shows or Cameron Mackintosh produced shows, because they were the ones that were everywhere during the 80s, and then you've got shows that have been written since my entire career began, and like Dear Evan Hansen and shows like that just come along and go, wow, these are really good. So when it comes to my favorite, I don't do it based on which I think is the best. I say it based on which show I was mostly affected by as a child to help shape me into who I am. So if that gives any background info. For me, it was Miss Saigon.
Oh, yeah.
Because whilst I loved Phantom, because Phantom was the first show that I ever heard, and I appreciated Les Mis because it was like this big one at the time. Yeah. Miss Saigon just had everything. It had an epic sound, a beautiful score, melodies that would completely help me escape and allow me to emotionally feel things that some of the others hadn't been able to do for me before. And then when I finally saw the show with John Barrowman years and years and years ago, it was and Joanne Ampel, it was great. It was the original production at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane, and so that was sensational. It was huge. It was epic. It was everything. It was like watching, which is I think Cameron's whole plan was during the 80s. It was like watching a huge blockbuster movie on stage. and I'd never seen anything like that with all the other shows that I'd seen at that point. So for me, yeah, I would say Miss Saigon was the most impactful of my life. The most recent production that happened in London at the Prince Edward Theatre, although I personally prefer the original, but then I think anyone that sort of is nostalgic in that sense and saw that first production would probably always favour that first production, because I think there is that level of, you remember it the way you felt when you saw it, not necessarily because it was a better production, but it's that sort of nostalgia thing. But the new production was fantastic, and it is on iTunes and stuff like that. And so, like, if you haven't seen it, I mean, watch it. The performances were fantastic. The set design was beautiful, and the score still sounded great. So yeah, there you go. You got no excuse. You can watch it.
That's what I'll be doing. There we go. Yeah. So okay, gosh. So we've jumped all the way back, and then let's go back to Mountview. Let's go back to there, and we've talked about your influences there, and then kind of okay. So what happened once you left Mountview? What was the next step?
So we were doing The Witches of Eastwick as our final third year show, but during the rehearsals for that, I had phone calls from my agent, because I'd signed it with an agent at that point. I was one of the lucky ones to have achieved that. And they said, "You've got an audition for the Donmar Warehouse production of Parade." And I was like, "Are you joking? Parade?" They're like, "It doesn't matter that it's Parade, it's the Donmar." I had no idea really what the Donmar was at the time. And I was like, "This is fantastic." It's like, "Yes, I'm in. Let me go for it." And during the entire rehearsals and then the show itself of Witches of Eastwick, I was constantly in and out of auditions for this new production of Parade, with Jason Robert Brown was even there working with me and giving the final yay or nay kind of thing. And I remember that my final with Jason was on the Friday of our Witches of Eastwick run. We finished on the Saturday with our two final shows. I then auditioned on Monday for, I think, Never Forget, the Take That boy band musical that happened.
Yes.
I wasn't overly excited about it, but I was like, okay, well, it's, that's the job. You audition and you just hope you get an offer, and then you can decide if it's right for you. But I wasn't exactly going to turn anything down as a just out of college a day ago drama school graduate. So I went in and I did the dance. I think I did the singing round first, actually, in the morning, and then I got asked to come to the dance round in the afternoon. And during that lunch break, I got the phone call offering me Parade, of which I said yes straight away, because there were two characters in the show that I love, and I wished that I could play one of those characters. And then the way the casting had worked out is that I would actually play both of those characters. So I was like, this is like the dream job. And so I said yes. And then I said, "Do I need to go to this dance call now?" And my agent was like, "Yeah, just go and have fun, knowing that you don't need the job, but it's good for you to get the experience and to be seen in front of these people and get used to auditioning still." I was like, okay. So it's probably the only dance call I ever had a really good time in, because I didn't have that stress of I need to get this job at the time, And then 3 months went by, and on I think it was my 24th birthday, was the first day of rehearsals for Parade. We had the meet and greet in the morning, and the talks from Michael Grandage, who was the owner or the artistic director of the Donmar at the time. And then we had Jason Robert Brown and Alfred Urey as the authors talk about Parade. Then Rob Ashford, the director choreographer, it was his first project as director choreographer. But he was in the original cast of Parade on Broadway, so he had a very personal attachment to it, talking to us about his vision. Then the whole set happens, and then it's lunchtime, and it's like, this is fantastic, what a great gig. And suddenly lunch happens, and they go, right, we're going to start from the top of the show, and we're just going to sing and read through as much as we can. It was my first job, my birthday, and I'm the guy that opens the show with a song. So like I've never done this in my life in front of some incredible performers who I had even been to see when I was growing up, you know, in shows. I'm like, I felt the entire world on my shoulders in that rehearsal room. Like if I mess up, everybody hope that this is going to be a great show is all going to collapse around me. I have no recollection of doing it, so because I think I just blanked all the way through it. But by all accounts, I didn't make a mistake, and everybody was like, they all got sort of goosebumps knowing that, oh wow, this is the show we're going to be doing. How exciting! So I think I did my job, but it was great.
Thank God
so
you nailed it.
I think Jason had a few notes for me afterwards, but that's just how it works.
Oh, I felt that fear for you. It's horrible. Oh, what an amazing first job, though. That must have been absolutely incredible. I mean,
it's very
into your acting. You'd want to perform there, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and like I think we were very lucky at the time because the Sam Mendes reign, which is where obviously Cabaret happened at that point. When he passed it over to Michael Grandage, Michael kept the same traditions going, but also attracted, because off the back of Sam Mendes as well, I believe. It's like, it became such a place that all these Hollywood stars wanted to come and work in. Like, back then we were earning like £400 a week. Everybody was on the same, no matter what part you played, no matter how big or small career-wise you were at. Like, I was earning the same as people who'd been in the business for 20 years, you know. It was, and I'd been 20 minutes. It was like, and like even in between the shows, Michael Grandage would come along and he'd pick up the litter, you know. There was no hierarchy. It was one big family, and I think that made a wonderful environment for art to be created in and for people to feel safe. And little mini families, little pockets, like all of us in the cast, we still talk to each other. I had drinks with some of them in New York when we all just happened to be there at the same time. I talk to Jason and Rob quite a lot these days, and there's just something special about it all, and it was a very lovely place to work in. I haven't personally worked there for probably about 10 years now, so I don't know how it's evolved since Michael left. I believe the quality of production is still there, the demand for tickets is still there, and it was a very special time, I think, at that point.
Cool. And then, so where does the next bit sort of fit in? So I seem to have in my head, and this could be completely wrong, but did you do, like, were you involved in quite a big concert at the Royal Albert Hall? Was that associated company, or was that, and when was that? And did that happen? Did I make that up? I can't remember.
No. I mean, I'm just trying, like, I think after, I can think of a couple of things in a row. So after Parade, I ended up sort of going, I had a period of time where I expected that things would take off for me because I was being told that. I also had that youthful graduate arrogance of going straight out into this wonderful place, working with these incredible writers on a 5-star review. Everybody expected it to transfer kind of show. And so, like, I had a little bit of, I was overconfident that more work would come my way quite quickly, and it didn't. I had auditions, but I didn't necessarily get the jobs. I think it wasn't until summer the next year, which would have been probably about 7 months later, that I ended up getting my next job, and that was I was offered the Monkees musical that was about to go out on tour, and also Departure Lounge, the musical going to Edinburgh. One was a £30,000 contract, and one was a £500 contract. And I chose the £500 small Edinburgh production of Departure Lounge because I was like, I really like this. I think it's really good fun, and I wanna experience the Edinburgh Fringe again as an adult, and I want to work on this new British musical and not sing the Monkees every week. Yeah. My agent wasn't thrilled at all about that financial decision, but understood it artistically.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I took it because the Monkees musical never happened. It got pulled, and so I wouldn't have had a job anyway. And then as soon as the Departure Lounge musical finished in Edinburgh, I immediately flew to no, didn't fly to Germany at that point, but I started working on the Rocky Horror Show production. That ended up being one of the biggest jobs of my entire career. And then once I got back from that in 2009, I suddenly started going into concert work from that point with Strictly Gershwin, with the English National Ballet.
That was what it was.
Which was great fun. And then eventually with John Wilson and his orchestra and the Maid of Vale Singers, and television appearances on these incredible Royal Albert Hall music concerts. So, like, I mean, it's been varied to say the least. But that little period after Parade was a bit of a dark, or wake up call. It wasn't really a dark time. It was a wake up call of, oh, this isn't going to be as easy as you think when you graduate. Because obviously I had a job as soon as I left drama school. I hadn't even thought about it. I hadn't had to go through the struggle that others have had and continue to have of leaving that microcosm of study and then just being left in the wide world to figure that out. That happened for me later than expected. And yeah, then things took off again, and I think it's been really good.
Yeah. So tell me about, so like Rocky Horror, like you say, that has been like this massive part of your life, hasn't it? I mean, were you first involved in Europe, or did it start in the UK? And then because you were on tour, and you just been an ever-present force, hasn't it?
This production of Rocky Horror, it was a separate one to the UK. So the UK Rocky Horror Show has been touring for years. I think I first saw it when I was 16 at Chichester. I think it was literally, no, it would have been 15 because I was 16 when I started BRIT school. So it was just before BRIT. I remember being in my school uniform and going, I'm going to go watch Rocky Horror Show. And it was Jason Donovan, quite an eye.
Amazing.
But I loved it. It was great fun, you know. It's a great show. And then in 2008, I got the call to come in and audition for a brand new production that was becoming a European tour. Full budget, big budget, and Sam Buntrock, who had recently directed Sunday in the Park with George at the Menier Chocolate Factory, which transferred to the West End and to Broadway, and was a huge visual success. He was at the helm as director for Rocky. So already it was like, okay, well, I'm going to go and work with this incredible creative team that weren't newbies or anything. They were established creatives that would hopefully, if I got on well with them, could be the start of other parts of my career or journey. It was a no-brainer, really. And in my personal life at the time, I just come out of a very big relationship, and I felt like I just needed to get away. So I auditioned for Riff Raff, and got it. And as it was a brand new production, they were very clear not to have any of the characters represent the film version in any way. They didn't want Riff Raff to be seen as the Richard O'Brien bald, although it'd be great now, the bald butler type thing. They designed a whole new idea and concept for it. And my original costume design was like a sort of a butler, but he had a bit of a tail going on. And as Riff Raff is effectively an alien from Transylvania and the planet transsexual, yeah, and we just go with it.
Sing, I thought, come on, sing.
Oh no. And I've sung the Time Warp over 1,000 times in front of people. I think I'm sort of, I have to do it. I probably don't.
Sorry.
But it was I saw the little tail and I was like, okay, well, he's an alien, so I'm going to make my Riff Raff a bit more of a weird I remember watching Monsters Inc. around that time, and the Steve Buscemi sort of invisible lizard character that just goes and just appears and then disappears. I took him as inspiration for my riffraff, and I wanted him to be a bit like a quick lizard that just is, he appears and then he scuttles off and then he comes back, and as a result I created this weird character that everyone really took a shine to it when they saw the show. And as a result, I ended up going back to do the show 3 times over like 3 different productions of it over the whole 10-year period, which is what I finished. 2018 was effectively the 10th year since I created the role in 2008. So it's been like a big part of my career doing that role in that show.
That's insane, isn't it? That's it's a fond place in your heart. That's hard to say goodbye to, isn't it?
Well, I think I've been very lucky with the jobs I've had, that given the chance I'll do them all again. But there's some parts that I don't know, like there's another tour going out and I'm 37 in a few months, and I think I haven't really got the energy to do that show again or do that part again. But there's that part of me that goes, oh, I hope they ask me, because I might do it one more time. And then I remember how much pain my body's in after the last time I did it, and I just don't know if I can keep it up. But yeah, there's those parts come along that have an impact on you, and you just think, maybe there's more I can explore in this character, or I've explored everything, but I just had a really good time.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful for that part and that show.
And didn't you meet Richard O'Brien with Christopher Big?
Yes. Richard, when he first came to see our production, didn't like it one bit. Apparently, at one point, when I was singing over at the Frankenstein's place, this little refrain, maybe because I have more of a lyrical tone to my voice rather than a harsh rock tone, right. That might have been it. But apparently, he walked out and just went, "I don't like it. I don't like him. I think he's terrible." And I'm like, thanks, Richard.
But that's probably just it's probably a role that meant as much to him as it does to you. So maybe he just was ready to see it in a different light, perhaps.
Yeah, I think he was battling with seeing Rocky Horror Show done in a completely new version that didn't even remotely pay homage to anything that he had done in the past, or that the current tour was doing in the UK. It was very, very different. Since then, I've seen him since then, and I've had a photo with him and Christopher Biggins, and he's absolutely fine. I don't think he even remembers any of that stuff. But like, he can think what he wants. He's always going to be Richard O'Brien to me. I'm always going to respect the man and just go, you know what? Just the Crystal Maze alone.
The Crystal Maze. That was amazing.
Yeah, like, stop the fans, please. Like, that was enough of my childhood, let alone the Rocky Horror Show. So like, he's a wonderful, wonderful man, and I hope he has many, many years of craziness in his life.
So tell me now, just like, again, like the other massive thing is you're producing. I didn't realize you produced a spoonful of Sherman, and that's quite exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, we my business partner James and I, we sort of joined forces when I was doing Shrek in 2011, because his now wife was in the show with me, and Dress Circle, the shop, was having financial difficulties in London and was threatened with closure. And as it was one of the only places that was selling my album at the time, I felt I need to save it. It was just one of those institutions that I remember going to as a kid. I'd always come to London, we'd see a show, but before we did, we'd go to Dress Circle and we'd have a look to see if there's a new CD out that I wanted to get, or there was a poster that I liked, or it was just part of my childhood growing up. So I spoke to James and we decided that we would put on a concert and try to raise money, like a benefit concert, to help raise awareness rather than necessarily pay them money, because they weren't a charity. It was a shop. But we thought at least if we rose awareness, and people might go and support it. And it stayed open for another year after that show. But sadly, as most other record shops at the time, it was doomed to kind of hit the wayside. But James and I really enjoyed the putting a show on element of it all. And then we started our company, and we bought Andrew Lipper, who wrote The Addams Family and Big Fish and The Wild Party. We brought him over in 2013 for his first solo London concert at the St. James Theatre, which is now the Other Palace. And then we brought some other new writers over, Kerrigan and Loudermilk, Scott Evan Davis, and we premiered their material and sort of showcased as part of more of like an American writers season. And then we sort of took a bit of time out to figure out what we wanted to work on next, and started to develop one of my musicals that I wrote. And then we found out we had secured the rights with Aria Entertainment for the Addams Family UK premiere. And that was a bit of a game changer for us. We shifted everything and all our focus on, let's try to do this and get this on its feet. And we got very far, and to putting the production on. It took about 2 years, and then the UK tour was starting to happen. And sadly, we had an investor that pulled out last minute for us. We ended up being associate producers on the UK tour of Addams Family rather than leading producers, which may not mean a lot to everybody, but it was a turning point for us yet again as a company. And we suddenly shifted all our focus into this Spoonful of Sherman project that I had been involved in from the workshop stages. And it was effectively a 2-hour sort of docu-musical, let's say. It's a documentary taken through the life of the Sherman brothers and their father, Al Sherman, as well as their I think Robert Sherman's younger son, Robbie, who ended up writing the book for it, the script, and the musical being tied in. And you're hearing basically 100 years of hits and family music, as well as learning all about this family tree and the history within the family. And it was just beautiful to do, and it went down really well. And then it got to a point where the producers at the time weren't taking it further, weren't doing anything with it. So we snapped it up and reimagined it as more of a production with that same sort of storytelling arc to it. And we took it on tour.
Wow.
And it was really, really lovely, a really beautiful piece. So hopefully we're still pursuing it to have a second life, because obviously when you put it out once, you learn a lot about what worked, what didn't work, and how you want to improve on it. And we're looking to break it into off Broadway, and hopefully eventually bring it back on tour again, and then move it to the West End for a limited run in like a small venue like the Vaudeville or places like that. So we'll see if that happens, but that's our current trajectory for it, and it's just beautiful. It's such a lovely piece.
That's so exciting. I didn't realise that you'd had an involvement with that, and I was like, wow, that's a really exciting project. So good luck with that.
Thank you.
That's definitely going to happen, I think. And then, can we talk a bit about Imaginary? That's the other thing I really am fascinated with, because when did you write that, first of all? And then that kind of that was interesting. Were you ever in National Youth Music Theatre yourself? Did I imagine that in my head?
I was.
Yes.
I was in it during 1997. And that was with like Mike Gibson, who's just been in this show called Quiz that was on last night, as one of the leads in that. And Sheridan Smith, who majority of people know Sheridan Smith. And there was Jamie Bell, the sort of who was Billy Elliot in the film, and is now like Hollywood actor. I think Ben Barnes, who is Hollywood actor extraordinaire. He was the drummer in the production at the time, and went on and developed more on-stage work and is now like obviously the Hollywood heartthrob in places and stuff. It was a very exciting period to be in the National Youth Music Theatre, and so it was always very dear to my heart. And then I was asked to come and do workshops at one point for them a couple of years ago, and I spoke with Jeremy Walker, the gentleman who now produces and runs the National Youth Music Theatre, who effectively has invigorated it and reinvented NYMT to a whole new level. And he sort of installed this philosophy of wanting to commission a new musical for every season, which is a no easy task, because they cost a lot of money to do, and they're new musicals. Like, they're not always the easiest things to sell in the world, and also you never know what you're going to get, because the casting only happens in February. Then you get 1 week to play around with everything and workshop it in April, and then you've got 10 days leading up to the run in summer, because it all fits around the summer holidays. So the actual time to develop and get the musical right is very difficult. So it's a tough ask to make. But anyway, he was commissioning these shows, and he asked whether my writing, or one of my writing partners and I, had an idea for a show. And we were flying to Tokyo, I think it was Christmas 2016, or maybe 15. 16, 15. I honestly couldn't tell you now. But we were flying to Tokyo to watch our show over there, and we stopped at Istanbul and had 3 hours in the airport, and we just started spitballing some ideas, and we came up with this sort of like idea of an imaginary friend and what that means. And the next thing you know, we pitched the idea to NYMT. They liked it and then commissioned us to write this musical. And in 2017, exactly 20 years since I was in NYMT, wow, they were producing my musical. So it was a very special time. And now that show is licensed with theatrical rights worldwide, and I keep flying around the world and the country to go and support and watch these various productions that get done by high schools, amateur societies, and everyone. It's really, really rewarding and lovely to sort of see, you know.
That's huge. I mean, you went to the States, didn't you? So where was that? That was
the most recently. I don't know if you or anyone that watches this sort of remembers there was was it the Park Hall? There was I can't remember the name of what they call it in New York, or in Florida, sorry. But in Florida, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas School was subjected to the horrible shooting incident a couple of years ago. And I think someone came in and just with a gun, and too many people died. Too many students and teachers died. It was horrendous. And they had suffered obviously a huge emotional loss, and I think they'd put on a few things since then, but they hadn't really put on a big musical since the shooting. And they finally decided to do a show, and they chose Imaginary as the show to do. And Tim and I were both, my writing partner and I, we were just so touched by that, to know that this crazy idea we had in Istanbul airport that we then wrote over here is now a huge part of a high school's history.
Yeah.
It was very emotional for us, and Tim couldn't make it, sadly, but I was in New York at the time and also scheduled to go to Florida anyway that week. So I decided that I would go and watch and support the students. And I didn't realize at the time, but the students directed it, they musically directed it, they choreographed it, they designed the set, like the whole production. They've got the supervision of the staff, but they effectively did all the work. And it was beautiful, it was fantastic. And a lot of the kids, the senior members of that cast, they were there. They know people directly in the classroom when people were when the shooting happened. So they were exposed to so much at such a young age. So to be to be able to allow them, going back to what we said right at the beginning, to have created something that allows them to escape themselves and escape the horrors of life as it is sometimes in their, especially in their circumstances. It was incredible to sort of be there and play a part in, I guess, their healing process, or you know, I can't imagine what they all went through.
Wow.
So it was a lovely thing to see, and now that particular production is up for 19 awards in the Florida schools awards competitions that they have. So like, it's just a credit to the talent of those kids and everything they've achieved. So it was brilliant.
That is brilliant. That's so brilliant. Oh, awesome. So
Yeah.
there we are. Like, no, but that is awesome, isn't it? Because I think it's like you say, like, I just feel like life just, and I'm sure you feel the same, it just goes in these little kind of crazy circles. And, you know, the fact that it was, did you say it's 10 years or 20 years from when you were in National Youth Music?
20 years.
20 years. 20 is the magic number, isn't it? But it's just strange, very strange how that happens. And strange that, you know, you were going to Florida anyway, you know, things like that. Tingle, they make me tingle. So tell me then, gosh, there's so many strings to your bow, but we need to talk about your albums. So how many albums have you got, first of all? And you're waiting for another one. Not Memories. No.
Melodies.
Yeah.
Yes. So I in 2010, to fill time, because I was unemployed waiting for some next job to come, I was like, I fancy recording an album of new musical theatre songs that I can sing. So I did, and I asked Jason Robert Brown to sort of, if he had a song that he would write for me or had never been heard before, and he sent me something on. It was actually New Year's Eve at around 8:40 p.m. I remember it vividly. Wow. And it was, I think, 2009 on that evening. And I listened to it, and it was called All Things in Time. And it was such a beautiful song that I was like, this has to finish the album. And then I wanted to bookend it with The Old Red Hills of Home, which is the opening of Parade.
Oh, nice.
And see if I can just like fill that gap. So it's like where I was when I started and then where I am now, and fill it with cool things of new writing from both America and the UK. And Jason sort of said, well, you can either come to Los Angeles and record it with me over here and I play it, or I'll play it and I'll send you the track and you can sing it in your studio back at home. And I was like, okay, I'll come to Los Angeles. Thank you. And because Jason was playing on it, it meant that every other composer that I approached also wanted to play their song too. So this silly idea that I had became this sort of, for me, a timeless moment when I got to collaborate and create music with just some great people, and it became so much bigger. And that was 2010 when that came out. Since then, I finished that album with a song of mine that I'd written, always vowing that if I do a new album, it'll be an album of songs that I've written. And I will either sing them myself or other people will sing them. But that's my next thing that I'd do. I didn't want to be someone who sings another version of Bring Him Home from Les Mis, or Send in the Clowns, or other people do that. I want to do something that is, if I'm going to spend all this money, because it costs a lot, I want to do it right, and I want to do it for me as something that I'll always go, I did that was cool. And so in between this new one that I'm doing, I've had 2 cast recordings in English, and I've got a Japanese cast recording of 2 of my other shows. I've sung on about 5 or 6 other people's cast recordings, or just songs that they've written that they've asked me to sing. So like, thankfully, my discography that I appear on is quite large now, which is nice. But the time has come for me to release my next new album, and it's in 2 parts. So confusing. I don't know why I can't make things simple, but it's in 2 parts: Melodies and Motion. Melodies, which is coming out this year, which I've been working on, is a full illustrated 13 songs that I have written over the last, since 2004, I think it is, 2003, 2004, all the way through to now. Each song is sung by a different sort of epic theatre voice of the industry. So I only appear on one duet with my girlfriend, actually, with Heather, and then I then like a couple of my college buddies, because we recorded this song years ago and now we're revisiting it as older people. But otherwise, every other song is sung by well-known people from all over the world. I wanted to reflect the people that I have met and I've worked with. So I've got a song being sung by a gentleman from Japan. I've got some from a school in Germany that I've taught at. I've got some American people like Natalie Weiss and Susan Egan, who's the Meg in the original Hercules animated film. So she's singing for me. And then I've got people from London, West End, who I've worked with, and like Carrie Hope Fletcher and her partner Oliver, who were Wednesday Addams and Lucas in our production of Addams Family. So like there's such a collection of great voices and great talent from all over the world singing on it. And that's coming out this year. And then Motion is more personal. That's an album it's more like me and a band kind of album, and I'm singing all the songs on that, but I won't be doing that until about next year, I think. But I felt like it was time. And this new album starts with the same song that I finished my last album at, but now it's fully orchestrated with an orchestra and a new voice on it. So it's like picking up again where I left off and moving forward.
Amazing. That's just perfect, isn't it? Because that's it, isn't it? It's kind of, this whole lockdown situation's been kind of a bit of a nostalgic time, and I think also to kind of reflect on what you've achieved and where you're heading to next. That's quite exciting. And for someone on the outside, it's very interesting, because I feel like having not been present for all of that stuff, but I feel like Scylla. No, I'm joking. But it feels like you've come full circle. It feels like you're doing what you were always meant to do, because you've always I remember being very lucky to go once to Portsmouth. You invited me to a concert down there, and I think this is when obviously you were working at Brighton, and I just couldn't believe it. I think it was at Hayling Island, and it was amazing. It was packed, like the community, it was absolutely packed out. And I think it was just you literally playing and singing, and you had all these groupies. You were already made. It was amazing. And I just remember thinking, wow, this is absolutely incredible. And so hearing you now talking about all of this, and all these incredible people on such an international scale who are so talented, and they're friends of yours and colleagues, that's cool, isn't it? You've done it. Do you know what I mean? You've kind of taken it to that next level.
Well, I'm again, I know it's so cliche to say, but I feel like I'm very lucky. Like, I've worked hard, I think I'm not going to beat around the bush there. I have worked hard, and I've struggled, and I've had some big personal issues that I've had to battle with, as well as huge successes that I've been overwhelmed by. And it's life. It's not all glitz and glamour and wonderful and handed to you on a plate. You have to work hard for it. But I feel like I'm in a really lovely place now, where I'm starting a new chapter. Like, my girlfriend and I are looking at getting to a point where I can move over to the States and start a new chapter there. And on a personal level, if we get married and have kids and stuff, that's a new step forward as well. I feel like my time in the UK so far has come to a stop and a crossroad, and I'm so excited to see where I'm going next, but still knowing that it's rooted in everything that we were saying at the beginning about what it means to tell a story, and taking those people away in whatever way possible for a few hours of a night. And it's thrilling, and I don't know what I'm doing yet. I know I've got musicals that I have to write. I know I'm going to be producing some shows at the end of this year, beginning of next, and hopefully be on stage again doing some more. But if I sort of say I'm definitely doing one thing or another, and that's the direction I'm going in, I'd be lying. I don't know. So it's great to be having looking out on a brand new era of my own personal life. It's good. I'm very lucky with it.
Awesome. We're going to watch this space, Stuart.